Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Oh my goodness, I have a special guest today. I am here with Mete, who is one of my best friend's sons. So you're like a virtual nephew, practically.
Yes.
And I am visiting Mete in the great city of Tokyo, Japan.
Yeah.
Because we are committed to the Yang Gang, we decided to do this video, which will be a reaction to some of the highlights of the MSNBC debate.
Yeah.
Now, Mete, before I came and visited, were you familiar with Andrew Yang?
No, I wasn't, but I decided to join him because, he said something was really intrigued me. Healthcare for all, and I know that's an issue around the world that not enough people can afford treatment to dangerous diseases, which can sometimes cause death.
There you go. So you are a fan of his belief on everyone having accessibility to healthcare through Medicare.
Yes.
And you are into technology as well?
Yes, I'm really into technology.
Yeah. So do you like math?
I do.
Well, I think Andrew Yang is your candidate, and I'm glad you are part of the Yang Gang. High five. Yang Gang.
Yep.
So now I'm going to play parts of the debate and we'll react in real time. And I'm just going to do the highlights. So here we go. Oh, very exciting.
If you win the 2020 election, what would you say in your first call?
All right. First thing we need to do is we need to acknowledge that this Ashley Parker was one of the few people who asked Yang any questions. We didn't get anything from Mitchell or Maddow, even though they had questions for tons of other people like Booker and Klobuchar who were polling behind us. So I suspect that Maddow and Mitchell made the determination that, we're going to focus on the first tier, more popular candidates and just excluded Yang, despite the fact that, let me show you an interesting chart, Mete. All right.
So it looks like Booker, in the math problem that we did a few days ago, it looks like Booker's water is more sweet. It's like the blue is the sugar, and it's like the red is the water. So I understand why most people want to do Booker, because 10 lots of sugar and little water compared to the sugar, that means the water is going to be sweeter.
That's right. Now, just for the viewers who don't know about our analogy, Mete and I were discussing fractions. And one of the analogies we used was, well, maybe the top of the fraction is like the sugar and the bottom of the fraction is the water. And the bigger the fraction, the sweeter the drink. And you see Booker here has lots of questions, or in our world, sugar. But he doesn't have that much more water, or in the actual data, web search activity in terms of people searching for Booker on Google.
Yeah.
So Booker's in a great place because not that many people are searching for him, and then he's getting a ton of questions. The opposite of that is Yang.
Well, Yang has lots and lots of water and very little sugar, so that the sugar is the questions, and he has so many web searchers. So if we put the questions, it doesn't make sense because he has so many searches, so maybe people should ask him more questions. But the thing is, why don't they ask him more questions if he has around 62 web searchers?
Yeah, so he has probably about 4 times as many people searching for him as they're searching for Booker. Yet he actually had half as many questions as Booker. So if Booker got 10 questions, given that Yang had 4 times as many searches, you could argue Yang should have had 40 questions.
Yeah, because he had so many searches, so maybe they should be like, what are your plans? Because apparently people
want to know
about it.
People want to know. But instead, Rachel Maddow and Andrea Mitchell decided that they didn't want to ask Yang anything.
Yeah. which I think
they wanted to focus on Booker and Harris.
I think that's very unfair.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Yang should be the one who has the most.
I agree. Basically, MSNBC is like putting poison in our water.
Yeah. Like,
and then giving Booker this sweet drink for nothing, even though nobody wants to search for him.
yeah, like no searches, lots of questions.
That's
so many searches, not too much questions. It's like poison. This is not fair. I think Andrew Yang should get at least 40 questions.
Or Booker should get 1.
Yeah.
Right? Or as in Tokyo, this is no good. This MSNBC treatment is no good.
No. My Soyuz there even says no.
Yes.
My bird and dog even say no.
Yeah. But MSNBC, bad. Okay. So now let's get back to the debate.
Like, MSNBC is a, like, news broadcasting.
Yeah, they should treat everybody fairly. Hopefully MSNBC hears this video, but more importantly, hopefully people who hear this video start reaching out to MSNBC's advertisers and let MSNBC's advertisers know that, you know what, you guys are buying ads on a network that is purposely unfair to Andrew Yang, and that's not good for democracy. It's not good for the first Asian American candidate in the top 6 in the Democratic Party in the history of the country. And why are they doing this? Anyway, let's get on with the debate reactions. I know we got into a tangent, but it was an important topic. So, okay.
Well, first I'd say I'm sorry I beat your guy.
All right. So that was a great line by Yang.
Yeah.
And I have 2 feelings on this. On the one hand, he needed to stand out. On the other hand, I almost wonder if it was such a humorous response that people focused more on the joke and not on the substance of his answers. So as an example, MSNBC produced this highlights reel. And they, so far, included the joke, but not the rest of his answer where he talks about the substance. Go ahead, Mete.
Like when they said, because like, I think why they said that is like, because Trump would intervene and deal with Vladimir a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, there's like, what are you going to do with Vladimir Putin? Because they're so used to Trump dealing with Vladimir Putin. So he's like, I'm sorry I dumped your guy, but yeah, like that. Because because they're so used to Vladimir being
their boy.
Being like
buddies. treated
by Trump, and now they expect Yang to do the same, but Yang knows this, that they're trying want Trump's way. So like he's like, I'm sorry I dumped your guy. Because
Okay. Now let's move on to Elizabeth Warren.
First, read the Mueller report, all 442 pages of it that showed how the president tried to obstruct justice, check for $1 million. And that tells us about what's happening in Washington. The corruption, how money buys its way into Washington. They've made it very...
Okay, so that was Warren. Warren basically comes across as a fighter. But I kind of, every time I see her speak, I try to think of to myself, how will the Obama-Trump voters react to her? How will independents react to her? How will Trump supporters who are trying to decide if they should turn out to the polls react to her? And I worry that she will activate the Trump base and turn off a lot of the independents because she comes across so adversarial. She's always about fighting and I'm gonna declare war on the rich, or I'm gonna declare war on companies. And for sure we need to do work there. But if you're a great leader, you can't be fighting all the time. Yes, Mete.
It's like, if you're going to be a great team, you don't hold your swords drawn out at people's chests all the time. All the time. You got to eventually just throw those swords in the bin and just lie back. Like, you can't always be in a movie. So, who's there? Who's who's there? Like when someone knocks at there, is like, police, someone's breaking my house. Like that's like too over exaggerating. It's like too dense all the time. Like to be a good leader, you gotta chill sometimes.
She doesn't come across super chill. And you know, if you win the White House, you got to work with Republicans in the Senate and the Congress. And if she's always got like the samurai gear on and the sword drawn, I don't know if you want to cut a deal with someone like that. All right, now let's see Amy Klobuchar. One thing I will call out with Amy, on the one hand, I like her because she's clearly, I find that she's like a very hard worker and she is very reasonable and she wants to kind of balance the budget and she's very practical. So those are all plus signs for Amy. But you'll notice I feel like she comes across in this format really nervous and almost like physically shaking. Now, in fairness to her, Yang as well in his early answers comes across a little bit nervous as well. Contrast that with Gabbard, who is super calm and centered. And to some extent, even Booker and Harris are fairly centered. I don't feel like Klobuchar is super zen, but we'll watch in the video. Yeah, you have a point before we start.
In the video, you will see that Klobuchar's like her mouth is like half frowning, half smiling. You're gonna a bit stiff. She's gonna be like,
Okay.
So like you're gonna see her like stiffen and loosen, stiffen. And
well, let's see.
Be a bit nervous.
Let's see.
Very clear that this is impeachable conduct, and I've called for an impeachment proceeding. I just believe our job as jurors is to look at each count and make a decision.
As you can see, she like our job is like like she was stuttering a lot. Like she was
wound up very tight.
Yeah.
And you know, and we have to acknowledge that this is a big stage and her campaign is really relying on her to deliver the same way every campaign feels like these are make or break scenarios. But at the same time, what we need is someone that can win the general election. And if Trump frames Klobuchar as like nervous Amy, right, then that's not the image you want, and it could cause independents and again, those Trump-Obama voters, as well as the Obama coalition, they need to come out and vote for the Democratic nominee, and I'm a little worried that maybe Klobuchar won't be able to get the job done. But now let's see Bernie.
Sadly, we have a president who is not only a pathological liar, he is likely the most corrupt president in the modern history of America. But we cannot simply be consumed by Donald Trump.
So, as you can see there, like, he actually really strongly defined Donald Trump. Like, any other, like, if you just ask a random American at my school, they'll just say, he's a liar and he's not a good president. Like, that's what anyone else would say. But, like, it's not detailed enough. Like, what does he lie about? He keeps secrets.
Now, that said, you have to give Bernie some credit for directly confronting Trump, calling him what he is. I also should say that Bernie, I thought, looked really good in this debate. He got a haircut. He might even have new eyeglasses, like new frames. So he looked... you didn't feel like, oh my God, he's in his late 70s. Can he handle it? He just had a heart attack. I think he came across looking pretty good. Yeah. And what you'll notice is when we get to Biden, it doesn't look as strong, like energetic and focused as Bernie did. But now we go to Kamala Harris.
On the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for president of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama.
That's
who
ridiculous,
has spent full-time criticizing people on this stage as affiliated with the Democratic Party. When Donald Trump was elected, not even sworn in, buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is as a war criminal.
Sanders, let me bring.
All right. Well, that was Harris opening up on Gabbard. Now, the thing with Harris is she seems like she could be a really competent and strong attorney general.
Yeah, like
Someone who's like prosecuting criminals. Similar to Warren, I worry a little bit that the Trump-Obama voter and the working class Trump base will find Harris off-putting. Because she's also in the samurai mode.
yeah, like I think she's really strong and direct.
Yes.
But I think she's also like the first one, like the second one. Oh, but who's there? Who's there? Like it.
Now, here's an interesting thing. Bernie was very anti-Trump, and we didn't say he was too samurai. So some people will say that, it's not fair when a woman takes a strong, aggressive stance. You use words like off-putting and adversarial, but when Bernie takes a strong stance, you say he's very direct. So do you feel like maybe we're being unfair to Harris and Warren because they're women, just strong women, or is there something different?
Well, the different thing which I noticed was like Bernie was not that stiff and like he was direct, like, but he was not stiff, like he was not that like a bit aggressive, like he was not like that little fire in him, like he was not like that. This needs to happen. These dollars getting here. Like he's just like he's direct.
Right.
But like he's not that like fire stiff.
Yes. That's fair. I guess we'll let viewers kind of think about that, but we should be careful. We should be careful to make sure that it's not because we're as men, or you as a young man, assuming that women can't be strong. I don't think we're saying that, because what's interesting is that Tulsi, the woman on the left, clearly also a strong woman. I don't find her nearly as fiery and adversarial and off-putting as I sometimes find Warren and Harris. Tulsi can be strong. She's willing to confront people she disagrees with, but she does it with a greater sense of calm. Hopefully MSNBC shows us some highlights of Tulsi Gabbard, but let's continue and watch the next segment.
Yeah.
Bring you into this conversation.
Thank you. I wrote the damn bill.
The question.
I raised 7.
Okay, that one was when Bernie says, "Thank you, I wrote the damn bill."
Okay, now I change my thing about Bernie, and now I'm bringing Harris, the
Warren,
and Bernie to
all
the same
in.
level.
Now they're all in the samurai camp.
Like first, Warren and
Harris
were a bit higher than Bernie because Bernie was not that high fire stiff. But now he showed me like he was actually interjecting fire stiff. So now maybe I might put them higher because of the strong interjection.
Yeah.
But because of the fireness and the stiffness was so sudden, maybe I have to actually put them at the same level because their stiffness was the same. The fire was a bit higher.
Right.
But still, I don't think the fire should really count. I think the stiffness and the voice thing should count. So I think they should be all at the same level now. Okay.
So you think that Bernie, Harris, and Warren are all a little bit too angry.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree that like Bernie does come across sometimes like that neighbor who doesn't want you playing on their lawn, or if your ball lands on their lawn, they're like, "Get off my lawn." Right? A little bit like that.
Which kids play on other people's lawns? I never knew that.
Well, yeah, you don't purposely play on the lawn, but sometimes the ball, you're playing on your lawn, the ball goes over the fence. And then there are two kinds of neighbors. There's one neighbor that's like, "Oh yeah, cool. Hey, come on over in town. How you doing? Having fun? Here's your ball." And then there's another one that's like kind of looking through the curtain and it's like kind of angry.
I know some neighbors, like in movies and books, are like that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. All right. Now let's watch the next. Oh, I think it looks like we got Klobuchar again. Let's see if I think later on in the debate, she kind of relaxes a little bit.
yeah.
$17,000 from ex-boyfriends. And I'd like to point out,
Well, we have
Now, I think that was a bit more relaxed.
A little more
Like,
relaxed. She was
bit more
putting a
chill.
joke like, "Oh, I raised money
Yeah.
from ex-boyfriends." So I thought that was I think that was a good moment for her.
Yeah.
And she came across a little bit more approachable, relatable, and likable. So that's good.
Yeah.
Let's see if Harris is still on the prosecutor in chief, right? But again, I think she'd be a badass attorney general, but I don't know if she's ready for the White House. But let's see how she does in this clip.
We have a criminal living in the White House. And there is no question that in 2020, the biggest issue before us until we get to that tender moment is justice is on the ballot.
I like that.
Yeah.
I liked her there.
I think that was very good.
Yeah.
But still, like, the expression
Mhm.
and the talk was a bit stiff still.
Still, but a little bit better.
Yeah. I'm just gonna, like, here's that blonde-haired woman I keep forgetting.
Warren.
Warren. Here's Warren. Here's Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
And here was supposed to be Harris. Now I'm putting Harris here.
Okay, so Harris has cooled off a little bit
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit extinguished.
Okay, now here comes Cory Booker. I'll be curious to hear what you think about Cory Booker. He gets a lot of questions, but he's a good talker. But let's see what you think.
When I was mayor of the largest city in my state, and this is where I agree with Mayor Pete, mayoral experience is very important, and I happen to be the other Rhodes Scholar mayor on this stage.
Should he be?
Now, that was a bit like, I have to say this is a bit strong, but I think he was a bit showing off.
Showing off.
Like, he was like, I was the mayor of the biggest city. Like, and then he's like, yeah.
What Booker's doing there is he's expressing a little bit of frustration that Mayor Pete is the mayor of a smaller city.
Mm-hmm.
And people talk about, Pete Buttigieg is a Rhodes Scholar, which is like a really hard academic achievement to get. It's like only like the top 1% of the top 1% will become a Rhodes Scholar. So I think Booker's kind of saying, hey, I'm a Rhodes Scholar too. And I was a mayor of a bigger city. Why you keep talking about Mayor Pete? But I also I felt like Booker in that clip came across pretty likable.
Yeah.
A little bit frustrated, like, hey, how come no one's listening to me kind of thing. But like, bro, you got twice as many questions as Yang, even though nobody's searching for you. So you really shouldn't be too angry.
Impeached, and should he be thrown out of office? That's one question. He's very close to impeach. He's indicted himself. Number two, after he's thrown out of office or after he's defeated, should he be then prosecuted? Should he be prosecuted for a criminal offense while he was president? That's a judgment to be made by an attorney general.
Okay, so that was Biden, Joe Biden. I found that in that clip, he's good. He isn't the most concise with his words. Like, he repeats himself a little bit.
Yeah. Like, I think like he was a bit like stern. Like, maybe I should put him up to Harris level.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he's like, okay, look, if he goes out of office or if he's defeated, should he be accused for a criminal offense while he was president? Like, it was a bit direct. Like, I think I should put that at Harris level.
What's interesting for me is, well, if you're talking about impeaching the president, you have to be kind of in, that may be the time where you do want to put the samurai kind of fighting outfit on.
Yeah.
For me, Biden, his bigger issue isn't the aggression, the way that we're concerned about Warren and Harris always being kind of like putting the boxing gloves on. But the thing with Biden, like when you compare him to Bernie, they're similar age, but Biden, he just looks a little more weathered, He looks a little older.
Yeah, he looks a bit too old.
A little bit. And then it doesn't help that he finds it difficult to communicate in a succinct way without repeating himself.
It sort of looks like he's like he feels like people are not listening to him and repeats his sentence.
Yeah. So we'll see. Now we're going to see the battle between Buttigieg and Gabbard.
You seriously think anybody on this stage is proposing invading Mexico?
That's not what I said.
I'm talking about building up alliances.
So that was a big moment where Gabbard was saying that Buttigieg has been too open to U.S. military intervention in other countries. And then Buttigieg was saying, like, what are you talking about? Do you really think I was advocating invading Mexico? And then she was starting to say, no, that's not what I said. But it was showing like a good battle between the two of them. And I feel like I got to give credit to Buttigieg. Like, he didn't crumble under pressure when she made those accusations.
Yeah, that was a good call. I think that was a good call when Buttigieg sort of pounced.
He kind of counterattacked. Now, just again, really being careful about any implicit biases. If Buttigieg were a woman and reacted that way, I don't know. I think if Harris reacted that way, I think I would be okay with it.
Yeah.
I think the problem is, like, Buttigieg isn't always like that, whereas Harris and Warren are always sort of the aggrieved, angry attacker.
Tempered.
Yeah, a little bit of a temper. So now let's see Booker and Biden, and I think they're going to be talking about cannabis.
Number one, everybody gets out, record expunged. Secondly, I'm part of that Obama coalition. I believe that
So that was a brief moment of Biden talking about legalizing marijuana, and Booker looks like he was getting ready to reply.
Yeah, like he was like,
yeah.
Like, I can see in his brain, he's like, what on earth and who on earth are you to say something like that? Like, I don't, you're crazy.
So yeah,
like,
Booker was conveying, like, he's incredulous. Like, I can't believe you're saying this. I don't agree with you. Or I that's not what you said in the past. Probably was more like it.
That.
But in fairness to Biden, I thought he came across pretty clear. That was a good moment for him, right? Now, oh look, Warren. Let's see if Warren brings out the warm, inclusive, let's bring the country together vibe. Let's see if we get that.
Abortion rights are human rights. I believe that they are also economic rights. And protecting the right of a woman to be able to make decisions about her own body is fundamentally what we do and what we stand for as a Democratic Party.
If you give me,
I have to say, in that clip, I loved Warren. I felt she was strong, yet kind of like caring and warm, and like there's like the kind of fighting, like, I'm going to fight to punish because this is the right thing, and I'm going to stand up for people that need advocacy. So I think that was a really good moment for Warren. And now we're going to move on.
A chance to lead. I will cause what John Lewis says is good trouble. I will challenge us. I will ask more from you than any other president has ever asked before, because we need to mobilize a new American movement.
First one was he had so many teeth.
He does have a lot of teeth because he talked like very openly, right?
He had so many teeth.
Yes.
And like cut in little pieces, like.
But at the same time, I will say that was a bright moment for Booker, because I think the term that we're grasping for is something that Ronald Reagan did well. It was called happy warrior. You have to show that you're able to fight, but you're still approachable and positive. And I think in that moment when Booker was talking about causing good trouble and how we have to, now what's interesting about Booker is, like, he'll talk a lot, but I don't actually remember much of what he said. I remembered the good trouble thing. I thought that was interesting, but the rest of his statement, do you remember anything he said just now other than the lots of teeth and then the good trouble? Right? That's the problem with Booker. He's like artificial sweetener. His cup may have a lot of sugar, but it's like
he's adding
artificial sugar. Like, it's not, I don't know, it doesn't stay with you. as you can see, our buddies at NBC from the official 4 minutes of the debate, they included one clip from Yang, which was the "I'm sorry I beat your guy." And actually, they didn't include anything from Steyer, I just noticed. So they excluded a bunch of people. And who did they give the most time to in their summary? We saw a lot of Warren,
Harris,
and Buttigieg, and very little Yang. Are you crying for the Yang Gang? It's not only are you crying for Yang Gang, you're crying for democracy. Because democracy doesn't work when the free press puts their thumb on the scale. Do you know what that means? Putting your thumb on the scale? You know, when you weigh things, if you're trying to compare how two things weigh, if you then put your thumb on the scale to press one down, is that a fair comparison?
No.
Well, that's what MSNBC is doing. They're putting their thumb on the scale against Andrew Yang, and it's freaking BS. So if you, again, see any MSNBC advertisers on TV, go ahead and tweet at them and let them know that you don't support their brand because you don't like that they're subsidizing the unfair treatment of a legitimate candidate for president.
Yeah.
Okay, now, speaking of that legitimate candidate for president, now we're going to watch some clips just of Yang and react to them.
Go ahead, Mr. Yang.
Thank you,
Mr. Yang, you've made a virtue of your outsider status. You've never served in the military or in government. What has prepared you to respond to a terrorist attack or a major disaster?
Well, first, I just want to stick up for Tom. We have a broken campaign finance system, but Tom's been spending his own money fighting climate change. And you can't knock someone for having money and spending it in the right way, in my opinion.
Thanks, Andrew.
No problem. As Commander-in-Chief, I think we need to be focused on the real threats of the 21st century. And what are those threats? Climate change, artificial intelligence, loose nuclear material, military drones, and non-state actors. And if you look up, we're in the process of potentially losing the AI arms race to China right now because they have more access to more data than we do, and their government is putting billions of dollars to work subsidizing the development of AI in a way that we are not. We are 24 years behind on technology. And I can say that with authority because we got rid of the Office of Technology Assessment in 1995. Think about that timing. I guess they thought they'd invented everything. The next commander-in-chief has to be focused on the true threats of tomorrow, and that's what I'll bring to the table as commander-in-chief.
All right, so that was Yang's first answer. I thought couple things stood out to me. I love the banter between him and Tom Steyer.
Yeah.
I thought maybe Tom Steyer will end up endorsing and putting some of that hundreds of millions of dollars to work for the Yang Gang. And then secondly, I thought Yang's answer was very organized and calm and thoughtful and visionary and also just very insightful. What did you think?
Yeah, I think the same. I think his vision, like he's like, first we got rid of this.
The Office of Technology. Yeah. Crazy.
Like,
can you imagine? Why would a country think it doesn't need to understand technology
anymore.
In 95? Yeah, right before the internet revolution as well. Maybe they were saying, oh, government shouldn't have a role to play in technology, but you look at what he makes a good point about what China is doing with artificial intelligence. The Chinese government is absolutely clearing the way. They're going gaga over it. Yeah, they're clearing the way for their private companies to move faster than we are. And I'm not saying that the American government should do the same thing as the Chinese government, that's for sure. But the American government should start thinking about what is our country's technology strategy.
Yeah.
And what are in the national interests of the country, so we don't just let the private sector do it completely alone and assume that they're going to do the right thing for the country's interests all the time.
There are many examples of technology from just using your legs. Now we go to space. We go to space in rockets, dock with the ISS. We're in space. Like in 1999, we only had the space shuttle.
Yes.
But like, if that was before anything,
Mm-hmm.
like before 1962.
Mm-hmm. Apollo, that was a government program.
Yeah.
Space shuttle, that was a government program. So sometimes government has a role to play. The internet was a government research project. So the government does have a role to play. And I think Yang's right that we should probably reinstate the Office of Technology in the federal government. Okay, now let's continue to his next answer.
All right.
That don't have paid family leave for new moms, the United States of America and Papua New Guinea. That is the entire list, and we need to get off this list as soon as possible. I would pass paid family leave as one of the first things we do. I have 2 kids myself who are 4 and 7, one of whom is autistic and has special needs, and it's breaking families' backs. We need to start supporting our kids and families from the beginning, because by the time they're showing up to pre-K and kindergarten, in many cases they're already years behind. Studies have shown that 2/3 of our kids' educational outcomes are determined by what's happening to them at home. This is stress levels, number of words read to them as children, type of neighborhood, whether a parent has time to spend with them. So we need to have a freedom dividend in place from day one, $1,000 a month for every American adult, which would put, in many cases, $2,000 a month into families' pockets so that they can either pay for childcare or, if they want, stay home with the child. We should not be pushing everyone to leave the home and go to the workforce. Many parents see that trade-off and say if they leave the home and work, they're going to be spending all the money on childcare anyway. In many cases, it'd be better if the parent stays home with the child.
There he's talking about the importance of childcare and how paid parent leave is something that most advanced countries offer, but the US and Papua New Guinea are on a list where we don't. And we should get off that list, which I thought was a funny line.
Yeah.
I will also, just so we're not like completely in the tank for Yang, I thought that towards the end of his answer, he kind of like looked like he was running out of air. And it wasn't a strong closing, but it was a good answer. It was a solid answer. Yeah. And I think it was nice that he talked about how he's a father and he has 2 kids. Because a lot of the other candidates, they're like grandparents, so they may not be as close to what families are facing today, because when they were raising their kids, America was very different.
Mr. Yang, if you win the 2020 election, what would you say in your first call with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
That's a fun moment. Well, first I'd say, I'm sorry I beat your guy. Or not sorry.
Not sorry.
And second, I would say the days of meddling in American elections are over, and we will take any undermining of our democratic processes as an act of hostility and aggression. The American people would back me on this. We know that they've found an underbelly and they've been clawing at it, and it's made it so that we can't even trust our own democracy. The third thing I would say is that we're going to live up to our international commitments. We're going to recommit to our partnerships and alliances, including NATO. And it was James Mattis that said that the more you invest in diplomacy, the less you have to spend on ammunition. That has to be the path forward to help build an international consensus, not just against Russia, but also to build a coalition that will help us put pressure on China in terms of their treatment of their ethnic minorities and what's going on in Hong Kong. I want to propose a new world data organization, like a WTO for data, because right now, unfortunately, we're living in a world where data is the new oil and we don't have our arms around it. These are the ways that we'll actually get Russia to the table and make it so they have to join the international community and stop resisting appeals to the world order.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Rachel.
I think that was a bit more strong. Like, at the beginning, he said, I'm sorry I beat your guy.
The other thing, though, is that Yang really talked about the importance of data.
Yeah.
And you wonder, like, what do you think Warren, Sanders, and Biden think about it? And I think they have no idea about the value and importance and risks around how we as a society treat data and how we need to protect it. And just as importantly, who owns it and who should profit from it. So I thought that Yang talking about the data and a data World Trade Organization, I think these are the kinds of ideas that you need for your president to lead us into the future versus a president that just wants to bring us back into the past.
Yeah, we can't just stay or go to the past. We need to keep going forward.
Right. So as an American citizen born in Seattle, what kind of president do you want?
I want a president who give health care for all, improve on technology, optimistic, truthful, honest, and who always keeps going forward no matter what, brave, never gives up, resilient.
Wow.
That's the type of president I would want.
And who do you think is the best candidate that will meet your requirements?
I think Andrew Yang
Yes.
would be the first. Trump was like absolutely the opposite. Like people even like, who do you want a president who even people even want him to go to court for criminal offenses after he's president?
Who is the opposite of Donald Trump?
Andrew Yang.
That's right, brother. That's right. All right, let's see the next answer.
Mr. Yang, what would you do about the issue of white supremacist violence?
Well, first we have to designate white supremacist terrorism as domestic terrorism so that the Department of Justice can properly measure it. I talked to an anti-hate activist named Christian Picciolini who told me about how he was radicalized over a 10-year period. He said he was a lonely 14-year-old and that he was reached out to by a hate group, and he wound up joining it for a decade. Now he's out and he's helping convert people out of those hate groups and back into the rest of society. But what he told me was that if anyone had reached out to him when he was that hurt, broken 14-year-old boy, he would have gone with them. He said if it had been a coach, I would have gone with him. If it had been a mentor or teacher, I would have gone with them. But instead it was a hate group. So what we have to do is we have to get into the roots of our communities and create paths forward for men in particular who right now are falling through the cracks. And when you look at gun violence in this country, 96+% of the shooters we're talking about are young boys and young men. We have to, as a country, start finding ways to turn our boys into healthy, strong young men who do not hate, but instead feel like they have paths forward in today's economy. I'm here with my wife.
So I think that was also very interesting. He's like, we gotta fight against terrorism. Like some people get attracted into terrorism, but those are people who want revenge.
Yeah.
People who are left out. People who are bullied. People who are kicked out of everything. Those people who are badly treated at school, your child, usually don't become good people when they grow up.
I also think what's interesting about this clip is that Yang is uniquely comfortable speaking about issues that relate to boys and men.
Yeah.
And in a way, much of the plight of women is at the hand of men who have gone wayward and aren't able to process what they're going through, and then they take it out on other people, oftentimes women in their lives. It's actually one of the less covered topics, but when you look at the shootings, like they're not often done by women.
Yeah.
Right? They're often done by frustrated young men who feel like you were saying excluded, ostracized, frustrated, hurt, looking for a way out, for a way to feel powerful, like wanting to lash out and revenge. And we need to figure this out. And I don't see Biden or Warren or Harris or Bernie talking about this.
Yeah, because it's really important. Some of the bullied kids at school become like very bad people when they grow up.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like usually the most reasons for criminals, their backstory is being bullied when they're young.
Could be. I would not be surprised. All right, let's go to I think this might be his closing statement.
Wife Evelyn tonight. We have two young boys, Christopher and Damien. How many of you all are parents like us here in the room? So if you're a parent, you've had this thought, maybe you've been afraid to express it, and it is this: our kids are not all right. They're not all right because we're leaving them a future that is far darker than the lives that we have led. as their parents. We are going through the greatest economic transformation in our country's history, the fourth industrial revolution, and it is pushing more and more of our people to the side. We talk as if Donald Trump is the cause of all of our problems. He is not. He is a symptom, and we need to cure the disease. Now, my first move was not to run for president of the United States, because I am not insane. My first move was to go to D.C., talk to our leaders, and say, technology is ripping us apart, immigrants are being scapegoated, our kids are being left behind, and the American dream that my parents came here to find is dying before our eyes. And the people in Washington, D.C. had nothing for this. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to talk about an issue they don't think they have a solution for. I'm not running for president because I've fantasized about being president. I'm running for president because, like many of you here in this room tonight, I'm a parent and a patriot, and I have seen the future that we're leaving for our kids, and it is not something I'm willing to accept. We need to create a new way forward for our people. If you want to join us in rewriting the rules of the 21st century economy, go to yang2020.com and make it so that we can look our kids in the eyes and say to them, and believe it, your country loves you, your country values you, and you will be all right.
Thank you, Mr. Yang.
All right, so that was his closing statement. What do you think?
I think it was very intriguing. Like, I think that it was very nice and strong sentence. Like, I really was impressed.
Yeah, that was a great closing. I loved how he talked about his kids, and I loved how he ended it with this sort of like
conclusion.
Like, and the subtext was, I'm the leader. I'm going to make this country all right. Like, we're going to get through this. And it was strong, yet it was inclusive. It was approachable. It was warm.
Yeah.
Like, they did a good job with that closing.
Yeah.
That was solid. Yeah.
It's like, go to yang2020.com and look your kids in the eyes and say, your country needs you. Your country loves you.
Yes.
And like he's like has a really enthusiastic mood to fix what this world is now. Because if this world goes on, same presidents, same leaders.
I know. It's going to be terrible. Another 4 years of Trump. Can you imagine? I know. Seriously.
Yeah.
All right. So, Meta, you know, your dad and I are good friends.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been trying to get him to convert him to the Yang Gang. I don't feel like I've got him all the way. He seems to be very impressed with Buttigieg. So maybe, I know I have to go back because my trip is coming to an end. While I'm gone, do you think you'll be able to convince him? Because he is an American citizen as well. As an expatriate working here in Tokyo, do you think you can see if you can yang him?
I can hypnotize him. I can definitely make him a yang. Like I can intrigue him into stuff he likes and say yang likes him, because it's actually true. They have lots of things in common.
They do. Yeah, but he didn't know much about Yang before, right?
Like I think he needs to have a little bit of a
push
in his knowledge about Yang, because I think Yang is the perfect guy for him, because as I am with rockets.
You know, your dad likes data and math.
Yeah, like we are not Yang followers for nothing.
No, we are Yang Gang all the way. And the number one job of being in the Yang Gang is to Yang more people and get them in the Yang Gang. So you're going to get your dad in the Yang Gang. And I'm still working on my mom and brothers who are not yet in the Yang Gang.
They're the guy.
I don't even want to talk about who they're supporting.
The Trump guy.
Yeah, sadly. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for following this reaction video.
Yeah.
And thank you, Meta, for being a guest on the Nerds for Yang show.
You're
and
welcome.
One of the newest members of the Yang Gang. And hopefully you will be getting your first convert into the gang very soon from someone that you know that lives in this house.
Yeah.
In the meantime, keep it real and goodbye, nerds.
Yeah. Goodbye, nerds.